Hey Kentucky, this is Ryan Lemon. Tonight we'll discuss Andy Beshear's plan for the controversial Board of Education. Will Coach Cal produce any NBA lottery picks in 2020? And Drew Franklin previews the UK-Tennessee football game. All that and more is next on Hey Kentucky. Welcome to Hey Kentucky. I'm Ryan Lemon, and for Mary Jo Perino, the 7-footer, 5-star Josh Corman is my co-host tonight. Seen the scripts, got some softball ones for you tonight, right in your wheelhouse.
Can't wait.
Are you ready to go?
Serve them up.
All right, let's go. So Kentucky Republicans are warning Matt Bevin against challenging the election results in his re-election bid unless he finds evidence of massive fraud. Congressman James Comer, who lost to Bevin by 83 votes in 2015 in the 2015 gubernatorial primary, is among members of the GOP who suggest that Bevin may need to accept those results rather than initiate a bloody fight that could end up in the Republican-controlled legislature. Bevin trails by more than 5,000 votes to Democrat Andy Beshear out of more than 1.4 million cast. Meanwhile, UK election law professor Joshua Douglas says Bevin's challenge needs to stop at his request for a recanvass.
And I think it's perfectly within his right to request the recanvass. It's a close election, and make sure the machine totals are the same. What I think is extremely dangerous is for him to be peddling these theories of election irregularities or voter fraud without any evidence whatsoever. That has to stop immediately. Everyone must call him out for these allegations and say, either give us the evidence or stop peddling these theories without any substantiation. I think it's dangerous for democracy.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Allison Lundergan-Grimes has raised concerns about a robocall by a longtime Bevin supporter that asked people to report suspicious activity at polling locations to the State Board of Elections. Josh, your thoughts about what you just heard, because if he thinks there's voter fraud, 5,200 votes, that's a lot of votes he thinks he can make up if he's going to try to return this around.
Oh, absolutely. We know that Bevin and President Trump have been buddy-buddy, and this is kind of out of that playbook, cast aspersions on what happened, say there was irregularities, but not have any evidence to back it up. If you can't find hard examples of voter fraud or irregularities at the polls, then you do the recanvass. Like he said, he's within his rights to do that. I think that makes sense. But then once you get those results, if nothing changes, you got to move on. Produce the evidence or move on.
Because like I said, that's a lot of votes. If there is fraud out there, it's sort of 5,200 votes out there that there's been fraud.
Yeah, and it's telling that Comer, who only lost by 83, is saying, dude, just get on with it.
And he's same party.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Many Kentuckians would probably like to think that Governor Bevin's controversial comments over the years can be blamed for his loss on Tuesday. But in an election he lost by a slim margin, some other factors may have also been at play. One of them is Bevin's late campaign statement about adding tolls to the bridge connecting northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. To help fund a new billion-dollar project, current and former local leaders in Kenton County say that comments about the Brent Spence Bridge may have lost Bevin votes in an area where he dominated in 2015.
And if 2,600 northern Kentuckians switch from support to opposition, it changes the outcome of the election.
There's enough people crossing that bridge every day, 180,000 people crossing that bridge, that it will play some importance in any election.
Meanwhile, some say Bevin's decision to switch running mates cost him votes as well. Bevin abandoned Lieutenant Governor Jean Ann Hampton in favor of State Senator Ralph Alvarado. Hampton was popular with Tea Party voters, an important block of voters for Bevin. Josh, either or both?
Well, I think probably both, just because, like we said, the margins of 1.4 million votes and then you lose by around 5,000. And you had some counties where Beshear overperformed. If these things look to people like they're not appetizing, right? That relationship with your lieutenant governor's not great. You're proposing something that's going to cost taxpayers money. I don't think they want to hear that, right, at the 11th hour, right before the election.
He dominated northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
If he wanted to put a toll on that bridge and then he lost northern Kentucky, that had to play a factor in it, I would think, a little bit.
If it was close, right, if you're a voter and you hadn't decided yet and then that falls in, tips the scales.
I think it did.
Very well could.
Absolutely. All right. Now a look at what Kentucky education would look like under an Andy Beshear administration. While we wait to find out if Matt Bevin successfully challenged Beshear's election night victory, some are wondering if the governor-elect can make good on his promise to disband the current Board of Education. headed by Bevin appointee Wayne Lewis. The idea is popular with teachers who see their governing board and commissioner as anti-public education and advocates for charter schools. But replacing the board, who would in turn replace Lewis, would require Beshear to contradict arguments he made as Attorney General when he challenged Governor Bevin's power to reorganize various boards across the state.
I argued that the governor did not have that authority. The Supreme Court said the governor does. So we're going to use that authority to do the right thing, which I believe is absolutely necessary to giving JCPS a partner and not an adversary.
All right, Josh, this is in your wheelhouse. What's your take on this as a former teacher?
Well, I am on board with the comments about Wayne Lewis not being great for public schools. I do think that a lot of the moves that Governor Bevin made around the school board were designed to kind of vilify public schools, pave the way for charter schools to play a more prominent role in the state. And that said, right, so I am with the not loving the policies. I don't want to, as a teacher, as a principal, as a student, to have education policy being ripped back and forth every 4 years in the state because a new governor from a different party gets in, disbands the board, and puts people in who want to push their policies. So while I agree with what Governor-elect presumably Beshear would want to do, I do have there's some hesitation about just replacing these people wholesale and having new policies put into place because it really does affect how principals and superintendents and teachers do their jobs day to day.
See how interesting how this one's going to play out, actually, from here on out.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, let's turn to Kentucky football. With only a month left in the regular season, bowl projections are becoming clearer than ever before. The SEC will potentially put 2 teams in the college football playoff, leaving more room for teams like Kentucky to go bowling. Here's a look at where the Cats will more than likely could wind up. 3 websites put them in the Gator Bowl against Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Iowa. 2 outlets put UK in the Belk Bowl against North Carolina or Virginia Tech. Other selections include the Outback Bowl in Tampa with Wisconsin, the Music City Bowl in Nashville against Virginia, or the Liberty Bowl versus Kansas State. Josh, I just love the fact now it's like a foregone conclusion. We're going bowling. Now we just got to figure out which bowl we're going to. That's how far this program has come.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got, like you said, a situation where you're coming off a 10-win season last year, and even through the disappointment of some of the early games and the injuries this year, I don't think the fan base ever thought, well, we're not going to a bowl game.
That's right.
Right? I don't think that ever entered people's minds.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, we're looking at the Liberty Bowl or the Music City Bowl, unlike the LMNOPXYZ Bowl we went to Birmingham that one year. But they they win 7 games or 8 games. We're looking at some pretty good bowl games down the road here.
Yeah, I'd love to get one that's not at the same exact time that a UK basketball game is. That we've had
True.
that where it's had a couple times.
True.
I wouldn't mind a Wisconsin game because we know how the Badgers fans love their football. That would be some nice payback for 2015 in basketball.
Don't be surprised if we end up back in Jacksonville. I kind of got to I know we're just there.
I won't be.
Charlotte or Jacksonville.
All right.
Now let's talk some basketball. It seems the NBA may not be so high on the rosters for either Duke or Kentucky this year. Jeff Goodman of WatchStadium.com says executives tell him if the NBA draft were held today, neither the Cats nor the Blue Devils would have a player taken in the first 14 picks of the first round.
Kentucky certainly with some good players. Ashton Hagen's not considered a lottery pick. Their front line, not nearly as strong as it has been in the past. Nick Richards, E.J. Montgomery, Nate Sestina, the Bucknell transfer, none of which are lottery picks. The wings, that's where it's going to come in. Maybe Tyrese Maxey, according to NBA guys, can play his way into the top 10 or the lottery. Maybe Khalil Whitney, but neither, as of today, are considered top 10 picks.
For 12 straight seasons, either John Calipari or Mike Krzyzewski has not only managed a lottery pick in the NBA draft, but a top 6 overall pick. But even though we've seen Kentucky players make impressive jumps into the lottery by the end of the season, NBA executives apparently haven't seen a player on either roster capable of shooting up the draft boards. Josh, that's the guy right there that just, that's Keon Brooks. I thought that was Maxey. Maxey's the guy. If there's going to be somebody off this Kentucky roster that can make that jump, Maxey's the one guy.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if these comments Jeff Goodman got were from before the Michigan State game, because if you watch Tyrese Maxey play on that stage and have that performance, how could you say, no, they definitely, are not going to have? Now, we have seen people make the jump. In November, was Devin Booker going to be a lottery pick? Was Tyler Hero? No. Right?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
Absolutely. So, maybe Khalil Whitney turns it on and his athleticism gets him bumped up. But right now, Tyrese Maxey, find me 13 players better suited to be drafted in the lottery right now than that guy.
Now, I agree with you about Duke. Duke does not have a lottery
Trey
pick.
Jones can't shoot.
They don't have anybody. don't give up on Maxey yet being a lottery pick.
No, I think
Definitely
we get one.
Yeah. Now on Hey Kentucky, in case you missed it, a review of recent headlines. First, an update on the story we talked about last night. Matt Jones, I've heard of him. His removal from KSR following a complaint from the Republican Party about him using it as a platform to campaign for the U.S. Senate in 2020. He went on Periscope last night to talk about his gratitude for fans who pushed the free Matt Jones hashtag to #1 in the country on Twitter on how it could factor in his decision to officially file as a candidate.
On Wednesday morning, I talked to some folks about potentially announcing on Thursday that I wasn't going to run. I kind of made that decision that if Bevin won, that I wasn't going to do it. And if he lost, I was going to spend a few days thinking about it. But now, they've given me more to think about because I've gotten to see the support that's out there.
Meanwhile, Kentucky's Mitch McConnell is in the news for joining both senators from West Virginia to introduce legislation that could help shore up the unstable pensions and health care benefits of retired coal miners and their widows, but the bill would not secure the Black Lung Fund that faces insolvency in 2022. Up next on Hey Kentucky, we turn to the topic of UK's football matchup with those stinking Tennessee Volunteers tomorrow. Drew Franklin brings us another edition of Drew's 5 Friday Football Facts when we return.